This is the only video that you need to watch in order to know how to use LinkedIn Sales Navigator for your lead generation efforts. And if you're new to this channel, my name is Tim. I send cold outreach for a living, and we send over 500,000 cold emails every single month on behalf of our clients at my agency. So for that reason, after binge watching a bunch of videos about how to use LinkedIn Sales Navigator, I thought that I can do a great job explaining step by step every single button that you need to know inside of LinkedIn Sales Navigator, share all of the filters, all of the workflows, everything that you need to know about every single thing that I personally learned the hard way through trial and error. And more than that, I'm going to give you a step-by-step guide straight after that you can get in the link underneath the video right now. Now, more than that, before we jump into this, the one misconception is where Sales Navigator fits into your sales process. A lot of people just think, oh, Sales Navigator, we can probably send automated LinkedIn messages through it, so on. And this is a huge, huge misconception. So just so we're both on the same page, LinkedIn Sales Navigator is the input of data. What I mean by that is it helps you get company and people lists of people that have LinkedIn accounts. So all LinkedIn Sales Navigator does is it gets you company and people lists. The output then is for you to use another tool to then find the emails of those leads and to send them emails, for example. Maybe you may want to use that data to find the phone numbers and call up the leads, or you may want to automatically send them LinkedIn messages. But for that, you would require separate tools, which of course we'll cover throughout this video, so don't worry about it. So to get started, first of all, my assumption is you already signed up for a Sales Navigator account. If you have, we're going to go in order through all the individual buttons that we need to talk about, the first button of which is lead filters. So this brings very nicely to the most commonly used place inside of Sales Navigator. Your account would look something like this. The main button that you will be pressing 99% of the time is just these lead filters buttons, so just click on that. And voila, over here, you see all of the filters. Now, let's just get straight to the point. Leads are individuals, prospects, people that work at a company. Accounts, on the other side, are the company lists. So this is where you would filter for companies. The leads is where you would filter for people, right? So once again, if we go here, if you click on filters for accounts, it will be that. If we click on lead filters, this is where we filter for people. Now, these are the most common lead filters that I recommend. So first of all, let's start with the basics. You can filter for people based on job titles. So for example, you can go and filter for founders over here where it says current job title. You can also filter for functions. So for example, you can filter for marketing, right? And in this case, let's just change the founder so we can keep the founder. We can also look for geography. So in this case, we're just going to put, let's say, EMEA region, or we can put somewhere like, I don't know, let's go exotic, Nigeria, for example, right? And this way we can find the function, the job title, the geography, and then we can also do the industry if we really want to. So for example, we can look for e-learning providers, right? And this will filter down to every single person that works in this specific industry. More than that, you can also filter based on location, which we've already done, profile language as well. So if we go to the bottom over here, you should be able to see that we can filter for the language to be English, which is pretty straightforward as well. So essentially, these are the most common filters that you'd be using. On top of that, let's just go through the time and role filter, which is quite important as well. So the way you'll do that is pretty straightforward. So over here, you have years in current company. You just can select from the drop down over here. So it could be 1 to 2 years, 3 to 5 years, and so on. So if you filter for less than 1 year in role, typically that would mean that the person is more likely to be on the lookout for services and products. So once again, this could be like a sales trigger or a signal. And your outreach message could be catered for that. So you could call them out and say, hey, typically 3 months into your role, you're looking for a way to do X process. Curious, have you thought of a supplier for this, right? And this is where you can tie in your product to that as well. Now, next up, we also have some other filters. So for example, the connection degree, and this is one of the most commonly used filters inside of Sales Navigator. So in this case, all you have to look for is over here where there's connection. And in simple terms, when you click on the plus here, you will see a bunch of different options. So first of all, you can click on group members, and this will look for any connections that are in the same groups as you on LinkedIn. So for example, they may be in a group for sales leadership or something of that sort. Once again, it's pretty cringe. I would not recommend using that as a filter because you can't really do that much with it. But alternatively, you can look for first degree connections. So these are the people that you already are connected with. So once again, you can send them a message without needing a connection request every single time. The second degree connections are people that share a mutual connection with you. So it's the equivalent of you having a mutual friend on Facebook or a mutual, whatever it's called, like follower on Instagram, for example, right? So it's just a lot easier to break the ice, and they're more likely to accept your connection requests. And then third-degree connections, I honestly would not worry about. So most of the time, you just be looking for first-degree or second-degree connections when you filter for those. One other thing worth noting is you can look for viewed your profile as a filter as well. So if we go over here, top of the filters, you should have over here where it says viewed your profile recently, and then you can switch this toggle on, and this will automatically tell you every single person who has been viewing your profile. In my case, it's quite a lot of people, so this is another play that I actually share on my LinkedIn about how I retarget people that view my profile on LinkedIn, because I know that they're already aware of what I do for a living and how I can help them. So in a nutshell, that's a really good filter as well. And then mutuals off clients. This is a really once again, if you ever want to reset all the filters to just forget about all of them, you can click on clear all at the bottom. And this time, I'm going to show you the most underrated filter, in my opinion. So this is the connections off. And over here, if you click on the plus button, you can type in a client. So for example, let's imagine that my brother is a client of my agency. If I select his name here, I can tap into his entire connection base. So every single person that he's connected to on LinkedIn, I can tap into. And guess what? Later on in the video, I'll show you how you can automatically reach out to every individual one of those people saying, hey, I noticed we both know Sava, and who's a great client of ours, blah, blah, blah. And then you can ask an open-ended question or just shamelessly pitch your product, whatever you want to go for, right? So that's that. And that's how you would use that filter. Then the other cool filter that is worth showing you is a person that worked at a customer's company before. So for example, let's imagine that I worked at Kearney before, for example, which is a consulting company. And if we filter for current company to be Kearney, that would not be that useful. But if we look at past company and we just type that in, so the name of the company, we click on include, straight away, we can reach out to people that are, let's say, like founders, who are now founders who used to work at this consulting company. And all of a sudden, we have an icebreaker saying, hey, I noticed you're also a fellow founder who used to work at this company before. And in this case, we're going to use this with our clients. So in this case, let's say like currently my client is Coca-Cola, for example. In that case, we can say, hey, noticed you used to work at Coca-Cola, which just happens to be, one of my clients. Curious, do you have a similar use case for this specific cool thing that, we're doing right now? So this is working at a customer's company. We can do a similar thing for people that went to the same university or college. Once again, super overused, could be really cringe. I wouldn't really recommend it, but the way you could pull it off, if you were to try it, is by clicking on past company and just typing in, let's say in my case, KCL. So over here, voila, you see anyone who's now a founder who used to go to KCL. Similar message, we can say, hey, I noticed you went to KCL, blah, blah, right? So that's another cool filter. Moving on, aside from that, worked at the same company before. This is a pretty good one to try out as well. So if you worked at a big company especially, or someone on your team worked at a big company before, this could be a really cool filter. You can just click on past colleague, switch on the toggle, and voila, you'll have probably hundreds, if not thousands of people that that worked at the same company as you before. And then I can look for founders, and straight away in the outreach messaging later down the line, which I'll show you, you can then retarget 4,500 people who used to work at the same company as you. So, and it will say over here what company it is. So this one is Kearney, this one is Smart Lead, this one is Start Bootcamp. Once again, this will vary in terms of accuracy, but a really cool filter nonetheless. So moving on, let's take a look. So worked at the same company before, we covered that as well. So I've already showed you how to do that. So it will just be a simple past company at the top over here, and then you'll just type in whatever company you used to work at before. And then on top of that, next up we have the past job title. So this is especially useful if, let's say like right now you're targeting founders that are new in their role, right? So founders, and the best thing about LinkedIn Sales Navigator is that you can have signal stacking, whereby you're not just going for one static filter, you can like stack them so that you have more than one thing at a time. So let's say we're going for founders and we want to make sure that their past job title was something to do with product, right? And all of a sudden we can reach out to them and say, hey, I noticed you are a founder and you have a background in product. However, that typically means that you're very much focused on developing the software or whatever, but you're not so much focused on sales. And this is where we come in, right? So this could be another cool play that you can try, and especially useful if you're looking for people that are new in the role. So in this case, less than 1 year, their background is in products, they're a founder, and voila, you have 84 people that you can go after with that logic. That's another cool play you can try out with a past job title. And then on top of that, you can look for years of experience. And once again, this is only useful if you're a recruiter. And if you are a recruiter, why are you using LinkedIn Sales Navigator in the first place? If you were in that position where you want to go after people based on the years of experience they have, you will just click on this filter here, click on plus, and you can filter for people that have 3 to 5 years of experience, right? So something of that sort, and it will just give you a list of people. Of course, you probably need to pair it with a bunch of other filters in the process as well. That's that. Moving on, the next couple of filters that we'll talk about will be buyer intent and spotlight filters. So in other words, filters that show to you that someone may be in the market for your solution now, or at the very least, they're more likely to be in the market than just an average lead inside of a random filter. So for example, if they follow your company, this could be predictive of them needing your services, arguably, right? And the way you'll find those people is you'll click on following your company, you'll switch on the toggle, and straight away you can then filter for the job titles of people that follow your company. So let's say like we'll look for founders. Hopefully there is a founder that's following my company, otherwise it would just be an embarrassing demo. And voila, you have 1.5 thousand founders that follow my company apparently, which is interesting. That's great. I didn't know I was that famous just yet. And then next up, we have changed jobs in the last 90 days. The way we'll go about that is just switch on the toggle over here. So if you click on that, it will most likely just give you new enroll people. And once again, 8 million people that have changed jobs. But then if we put in other filters like founders, this could be a different thing. And for example, in this case, if you're selling like an accounting service and the founder just changed jobs and they're new in the role, whatever, this could be a useful trigger to go after. Similarly to this, we have mentioned in the news. Once again, it's not the most scalable thing. It's one of those filters that looks glamorous, but in reality does not give that much value to you, but still you can use that. Next up, we can also have a look at posted on LinkedIn. So once again, you just switch on the toggle and it will show you every founder that has posted on LinkedIn. Really good if you're trying to go after pitching them your copywriting or ghostwriting services, something of that sort. And then afterwards, we have shared experiences and common connections. We talked about this briefly. So in this case, you just can switch on the shared experiences tab over here, and it will show you every founder with who you have shared experiences with. So that could be previous education, that could be past employers, past companies that you worked at, companies you follow, groups that you're part of, and so on. But realistically, it's not the most scalable thing to go after, in my opinion. So once again, it's one of those filters that exists, but the utility behind it is super, super questionable. So I really recommend giving it a shot. And then finally, connections of a specific person. We talked about this already. And then finally, groups. And I cannot stress enough about like the whole groups thing. Whoever does outreach on the basis of people being in the same group as you, well, and I've seen people like show you in tutorials like this, like, hey, go do this, but in reality it doesn't work. But if you were going to try and do that, you basically just have to click on groups at the bottom of the screen, select the group, and you can type in like sales, for example. So for example, this random group that I found for Nigeria B2B sales, and once again, all the members of such groups are just going to try pitching each other. That's the only reason that they join these type of groups. So I would really not recommend doing this, as you can probably guess. You probably guessed by now. So in a nutshell, these are the main lead filters. And bear in mind that this is only step 2 of the entire video. So next up, we have account filters, and account filters are the filters that we apply to companies. So a quick reminder that all you need to do is just click on accounts over here, or account filters over here, right? At that moment in time, over here you have all the different filters on the basis of which you can filter the companies. Over here, in super simple terms, you can filter for annual revenue, which once again, I think is very much a guessed metric, but once again, you could try that. So let's say we're looking for companies between 1 million to 5 million in revenue, I believe that is. So over here, we can filter based on that. We can also filter based on headcount, so how many employees the company has. So let's say we want to filter for companies 51 to 200 employee range. We can also filter based on industries. So let's say professional services. We can filter based on locations. Even little things like numbers of followers are important if you're selling, let's say, like social media marketing as a service or something of that sort. And before you know it, you basically will have a bunch of accounts on the right-hand side over here. And in simple terms, all that you would have to do is apply a bunch of different filters, click on select all, and then save these accounts to a list. So you can basically click on save to list and then call this Q3 test accounts, right? For example, or something of that sort. And then always remind yourself in the list description what these accounts are, otherwise you'll forget, right? And on top of that, I'll show you a couple of other cool filters that we can apply here. And if you ever want to save the search so that you don't need to apply this every single time, filter by filter, you can just click in the top right corner here where it says Save Search to get notified of new results. And automatically, you will be notified via LinkedIn Sales Navigator and via email as soon as new companies basically enter the search criteria here. So in a nutshell, I think we covered most of the requirements of the filters for companies. You can also filter for department headcount. So for example, companies that don't have many people in sales, so let's say they have 0 to 10 people in sales, typically means that they're probably like lean, or at the very least, like they have a high revenue, but they don't have that many salespeople. Once again, they're more likely to outsource something like lead generation or whatever you're trying to pitch them. On top of that, over here, it says Fortune. So Fortune, this just gives you, I think, a bunch of different company breakdowns. Not going to jump into that too much. Then you have department headcount growth. Once again, this is important if you want to see, for example, that their product management team is growing at more than, between 10 and 200%. That's quite a big change when, they have over 50 employees. So this means that they're launching more products, and the chances are they may need more customer support reps or whatever to buy your customer support software, but simply because there are so many products that are going to market. The chances are they don't have the time for quality assurance and blah, blah, blah. And you can even make some sort of personalized outreach in the back of that. And then finally, at the bottom of the filters here, we have technologies used. And over here, you can just type in, for example, Shopify or something of that sort. And typically, it's pretty accurate when it comes to the technologies the companies use. But I wouldn't really recommend it because I don't really trust Sales Navigator to do technology searches. And once again, these are the most common filters. So I think we covered company types, company headquarter locations. So same here, you can look for like job opportunities so that they're hiring on LinkedIn right now. You can look at recent activities of senior leadership changes. So do they have a new C-level executive? Funding events, you can filter for those. You can look for, first degree connections, so people that you're already connected with. And on top of that, we'll cover these workflow filters later on as well. But in a nutshell, just to remind you at this point that whenever you apply the filters, same for the lead filters over here. Let's say we want to go after founders and we just have a quick list of founders. The end goal is to just basically select a couple of people, or you can select all of them if you click on this button here and save them to a list, right? So that's the end goal of Sales Navigator. And I'll show you later on how you can then find phone numbers, how you can find emails and all that good stuff, right? So in a nutshell, up to this point, what we covered so far is lead filters, account filters, and next up we're going to talk about personas. Now, if you watched this video up to this point, you would have noticed that I'm applying the filters only to then have to reapply them manually every single time once again. So if we want to avoid that, what we need to do is go into the home page, click on personas, and over here, what you can do is basically just create a new persona. And the way you'll go about it is you'll click on create a new persona. You'll give it a name. So for example, test YouTube video. You'll give it a seniority level. So for example, CFO, vice president, director. If you want to probably just prospect people that are higher in seniority, you can then give it a function. So for example, like, do you sell to marketing teams? Do you sell to product teams? What department do you sell to? You can put in the job titles. So let's say like CMO, Chief Marketing Officer over here. And then you can look for geography. So let's say the United States. Typically, this would save you, if you click on save over here, this will save you a lot of time later down the line, because all you now need to do when you go to lead filters is you click on lead filters, and you can simply, where it's persona, click on the plus, and now every single time you apply these filters automatically without having to worry about, going through them manually all the time. So in simple terms, you just select your persona, and then it will apply all the filters to save you some of your time on that. The other thing we talked about already is saved searches. So once again, if you want to save a search for later reference, all you need to do is just click on this button here, and this will save your search for next time so that you get notified whenever new events occur. So just click on this toggle and it should be absolutely fine. And this brings us very, very nicely into lead lists and account lists, which we talked about already. So whenever you add all of these people to a list, so let's say we add them to this test list, you can then proceed to accounts over here to see all of your saved accounts. And you can go, if you go to leads, you can see all the saved leads over here as well. Now, we'll talk briefly later on about what you can do with this data. The thing that we need to talk about now is how to scrape LinkedIn Sales Navigator. And in simple terms, scraping LinkedIn Sales Navigator basically means that you can grab the data of all of these people and push it into a CSV file, into a Google Sheet, into an Excel file, or you can then push it to a LinkedIn automation tool, an email automation tool, or something fancy like that. So in super simple terms, the way that this will work is, let's say you have a search like this, where you have a bunch of people that you want to scrape. There are a bunch of methods that you can do it, but there is two things that you need to know first. The first option is to use your own cookies when scraping searches. Now, if you're not familiar with cookies, if a platform like LinkedIn detects that you are constantly trying to scrape and automate basically the scraping of leads from Sales Navigator, if you exceed a threshold of over 1,500 leads per day or 1,500 accounts per day, then you're super likely to be blocked, because essentially it tracks that you're using your own login session to do this. So your choice is either it's you that will scrape LinkedIn Sales Navigator, but in that case, you have to only scrape 1,500 people at a time, which is super time consuming. It's really tedious and super manual. And you can only do a limit of 1,500 people per day. That's the first option. And I'll show you how to do that straight away. So in simple terms, there are a bunch of different scrapers. I will link my favorite one down below, and this will be the Prospio Chrome extension. In simple terms, it's completely free. You don't need to pay for it. And this is what it looks like. You'll just add it to your Chrome. And next time that you're inside of LinkedIn Sales Navigator, it's basically as simple as just clicking on Prospio over here. And at that moment in time, it will get you to sign into your account. And next time that you press this button inside of Sales Navigator, voila, it will basically scrape the entire search for you. So it will say that it's basically scraping the search. It limits it to 2,500 leads. You can give it a name. So for example, like test. And it will basically take a couple of minutes, maybe 5-10 minutes to scrape the list. And then at that moment in time, this is what your list would look like over here. So you just click on the actual list over here, and you can download it as a CSV file. And you have a bunch of the emails of all of these prospects at your fingertips. So you can basically do anything with this data that you want. So you can basically send them emails. If you use Prospio, you can also even find their mobile numbers as well if you're on a paid plan with Prospio on top of that. So in a nutshell, this is how you would do it if you were to scrape it yourself. However, if you opt into the guide underneath the video, I will also show you a method whereby you can basically pay someone to scrape it for you. And this way you don't use any of your own cookies, and you can also scrape all the 17,000 contacts or however many contacts there are, literally in under 30 minutes or so. All you need to do is just copy and paste this search URL and send it to a specific company to basically scrape this data for you without risking your LinkedIn account in the process. Now, next up, we're going to talk about how you can automate LinkedIn messaging to people that you found on LinkedIn Sales Navigator. And it's fairly straightforward. I do have a separate video that I will make sure to link right underneath this video right now, so you can go and check it out. But in super simple terms, let's imagine that these are the exact people that we want to reach out to. All we need to do is copy and paste the search URL and head over to a website, which is treach.io. You can get a 30-day free trial of this specific platform if you use my code, which is TimMagic, I believe, and I'll make sure to include that in the follow-up guide beneath the video. And as soon as you sign up for an account, you will get instant access to a 30-day free trial, which basically is completely risk-free. And all you need to do is click on leads. You will click on add leads. You will select Sales Navigator leads over here. Click on continue. And at that moment in time, you would just need to connect your LinkedIn account. So typically you will just click on connect account over here. You can then select your account really quickly. And you can also just tick that box, connect account. At that moment in time, you'll just connect your LinkedIn account to this platform. And voila, it shows that we have LinkedIn Sales Navigator. And in super simple terms, when we click on leads next time, and when we add leads to a specific list, all we can do is just copy and paste this search URL from LinkedIn Sales Navigator. So in this case, I believe it's this search over here. Let's say I just created a random search for founders that I called Mike. In this case, I'm just going to copy and paste the search URL. I'm going to copy and paste it into this Sales Navigator leads here. I'll call it a test list. I can select the sender, which will be myself, and then I can start importing the leads. What this will do is it will automatically scrape this search for us, and it will add all of these leads into a sequence, and basically have an entire video that walks you through how you can then set up an entire campaign out of this, so that you can basically send them automated LinkedIn messages to each individual prospect with a personalized connection request, personalized message thereafter, and all the follow-ups and all that good stuff being fully automated in the process as well. Now, at this moment in time, you already roughly understand how to scrape the searches, how to automate LinkedIn messaging using HeyReach that I just showed you. And once again, this will give you a 1-month free trial. And then on top of that, I showed you how to get emails from Sales Navigator. So it's basically as simple as just you using Prospeo, clicking on the Prospeo icon, and voila, it will basically scrape all of those people for you, and it will then enrich them with email with their emails, right? So at this moment in time, the next thing that I want to talk about is the workflow filters, which is one of those really boring things that we need to cover in this video. Otherwise, if you look at the workflow over here, the workflow filters allow you to basically exclude lists. So for example, if these are my current accounts, I may want to exclude them from the searches that we're going through here. So a lot of the time it's super useful because you can basically exclude a bunch of people and a bunch of lists that you used before. That's the first thing that's important. The persona we already talked about, so you can basically filter for the persona, and this will apply to the filters instantly. You can also then look for people that you interacted with. So for example, people whose profiles you viewed or who you messaged before, so you can include them in this filtering if you want, or you can exclude them just to make sure that you don't double dip or double contact and pester the hell out of them. So that's the idea there. And people in the CRM, I mean, that's not an available filter. You would be probably using it. And people you've interacted with, we talked about already. So in a nutshell, the other thing worth talking about is how you can get phone numbers from Sales Navigator. And in super simple terms, it'll be the same way as I showed you earlier. You'll just click on Prospeo Chrome extension. At that moment in time, you can scrape the list. And when you scrape that list, you can then go to the bulk finder and basically upload the file, and it will automatically find you all the phone numbers based on just the LinkedIn profiles that you scraped. And this will be done inside of Prospeo. And on top of that, I think you get about 20% off Prospeo. I may be completely wrong here, but once again, I do have an affiliate link, which I'll make sure to use and share with you underneath the video. Now, the other thing that we need to talk about is the custom filters and the Boolean searches. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. Otherwise, I will have to re-record. In super simple terms, the way that this will work is you will use and, or not in capitals, and you would then put quotation marks around the things that you're looking for in LinkedIn profiles. So for example, if I just copy and paste this over here into the search bar here, this should then filter for people that are VPs of sales and work in software companies and who are not in enablement or operation roles. And once again, this is a separate thing. I can do an entire video on that, but it's just worth knowing that if you're trying to look for something super, super specific, make sure to just put it in quotation marks and say, oh, I'm looking for this or this, and make sure that it's paired with this specific industry. And this is really important, as I'll show you later in the video, for a couple of other reasons as well. Smart play that you can try is basically pairing the account lists with lead lists. And the way you'll go about it is, first of all, you'll create your account lists and you'll save it into account filters. So for example, over here, we can look for companies that are currently hiring on LinkedIn, right? With a department headcount growth in sales of over 50%, right? 50 to 100%. And we can then reach out to them, and then basically we can save all of these companies to search. So let's just do that quickly. Search one. And at that moment in time, when we do the lead finding here, we can basically include companies from this specific account list that we've just created, which is at the bottom here. And all of a sudden, before we even filter for the personal criteria, we can reach out to them and say, hey, I noticed you've doubled the size of your sales team, you're hiring on LinkedIn, and typically this is where this headache comes in, and you can shamelessly pitch your product over there as well. So in a nutshell, that's that. You can also look at specific accounts, and this is one thing that's super, super useful if you're selling to enterprise, if you're selling to big companies. So if you click on account filters here, you can basically type in a specific account. So for example, let's say somewhere like Sway, let's do Coca-Cola as an example. And at the bottom over here, you can see everyone that fits your specific persona of the company. So in this case, you can see like the district managers, the CEOs, all that stuff, and you can filter based on persona. So straight away, it will show you a bunch of people that fit your persona. If you have a super complicated account, one thing that's super useful is if you scroll down to this relationship map at the bottom, is you can just click on add for a bunch of people that you see in the company being potential influencers or champions or whoever it is. And at that moment in time, you can just map those connections just so you can remember and save this for next time so that you remember who you're going for. And then you can filter for like champions, you can filter for decision makers, you can filter for procurement and so on. And this is super important, once again, in the bigger organizations, if you're using LinkedIn Sales Navigator for that. On top of that, you've got the employee count. You can see the distribution of the headcount in terms of different departments, the new hires that are coming in, the job openings, the different personas. So once again, it will tell you, for example, in this, that there are over 6,000 directors that work at Coca-Cola, only 252 of which are CXOs. And straight away, you can click on that to look for all of the people here. And in the meantime, we will cover at the bottom of each account, you can look for lookalike accounts as well. So in this case, if you go to scroll to the bottom of this specific company, it will tell you very similar companies like Pepsi, Nestle, and so on. And I'm sure you get the idea. So one thing that you can typically do is you can save this to an account list. And I'll show you this later on. You can save this to a specific account list, call that a lookalikes list, and then reach out to these companies and say, hey, I noticed you work at Unilever, which is similar to Coca-Cola, who we already work with or we spoke to. And then you can scan for any sort of headaches that they currently have as well. So that's how you will go about relationship mapping and org chart logic. And once again, I can do an entire video on this. So let me know if you're interested. I can do that on top of that. And then finally, in-mail strategy optimization, in a nutshell, is just 3 big words put together. But if you haven't noticed already, inside of Sales Navigator, you can click on messaging over here. And what this will enable you is to basically send messages to specific individuals, which are guaranteed to stand out in their LinkedIn inbox. So it will definitely be on top of their inbox every single time. But the limitation is you can only send 50 emails every single month. So if I were you, I would personally use the messaging feature just for really, really essential emails that you send, where you 100% know this person on a personal level, or it's like a highly qualified lead. Or alternatively, if you're like me, just use it for recruitment. Whenever you want to hire a person, just make sure to send them like a really tempting message using emails, and that way you'll probably stand out in their inbox as well. But honestly, it's not a great strategy to try and use emails automatically, or like it's not scalable for automation, in my opinion, so I would not really recommend that. Now, on top of that, there are some smart filtering examples. So for example, if you record one Loom video, and this is something I've done a lot, as you can tell by this long form style of videos. A lot of the time, what you can do is just filter for the first name over here to be, let's say, like Kate. And let's say we're looking for every single person who's a founder. Let's say we're selling them, like, I don't know, the Grammarly Chrome extension or something like that. Right? So in that case, we can go after 3,000 founders who are all called Kate, and we can send them one video to all of them. Because once again, at the very start, we can say, hey, Kate, just had an idea to run past you. Here is this cool Chrome extension, right? Something of that sort. So this is just an example of how you can try and scale LinkedIn Sales Navigator this way, so that you can just basically just try and, to send one message or one video at a bunch of people with the same name. This is just like a crazy example, and this is really good if you want to reuse a video message, for example. Now, next up, we're going to talk about how can you get a free LinkedIn Sales Navigator, because don't get me wrong, it is fairly expensive. I think in the UK, it's about $95. Well, sorry, about £90, which is probably about $100 or so. And the first thing that you can do is you can change your LinkedIn location. So if you change your location to Lebanon, you will only be paying, I think it's like $10 a month. But then the downside is the reputational risk that people are looking at you as if you are located and based out of Lebanon, as opposed to the UK or the US market. But you can definitely change your location. You can also change it to India, or basically any country where you believe that there will be a big price arbitrage. So you can basically change the location. More than that, if you have an entire team that you need to introduce to LinkedIn Sales Navigator, one way that you can do that is in the top right corner, you will have this random looking emoji. And if you click on that, you can then invite specific people. And this will automatically give them a 2-month free trial if they're eligible for it. So in this case, let's say I want to invite my brother. He's definitely not used LinkedIn Sales Navigator because he does not do any sales or anything of that sort. And straight away, I can send him the invite and it will give him a 2-month free trial. So I recommend for you to just get one LinkedIn Sales Navigator account for your entire team, and then just basically fire away those free 2-month referrals every month to another member of your team. So that's one way that you can basically get a free LinkedIn Sales Nav. And then on top of that, if you haven't tried LinkedIn Sales Navigator on a free trial, you can shoot me a message on LinkedIn. Make sure to connect with me. Just say LinkedIn Sales Nav 2-month free trial or something like that. So I'll try and send you this link so you can get a 2-month free trial on your side as well. And then when you hit 10 referrals, they do give you a couple of months free as well. And another life hack, if you cancel LinkedIn Sales Navigator after a month, they will offer you 50% off. So if I were you, just go try and cancel it after a month, and then you just basically get to pay half price for a bit. Now, the other thing worth noting inside of Sales Navigator, and this is point number 19 of this video, is that the industry filter is a myth. So the industry filter applies to the person and not the company. Typically, users self-select their industry during the profile setup. So for example, I think my industry right now is business consulting, which is not reflective of what we really do at B2B Boosted or inside of my course. So in simple terms, ignore the industry filters for the most part, especially for people. So instead, you can use the Boolean keywords like SaaS or software, which we talked about earlier. Now, on top of that, account growth trends, we talked about this already. So essentially, if you go on account filters over here, and if we look at department headcount growth or headcounts over here, or this company headcount growth field over here, you can use this to your advantage. So if there is a big growth of over 20%, they need tools, process, they need automation. But if there is a decline, then there are layoffs, churn, problems that are worth solving through someone else's product and services as well. So if I were you, just use bigger ranges of 20% growth in 6 months or minus 10% growth. And this way you can then funnel them into different types of campaigns. And once again, I've got a bunch of videos on how to do this, which I'll tell you all about towards the end of the video as well. Now, we talked about stacking different kind of filters. So for example, you can filter for title, industry, function, job. They change their jobs, they viewed your profile. And this way you will basically narrow down the search of leads from 30,000 people down to just 30 people. And once again, the beauty of that is the level of personalization that you can then run into, and you can like really send them a super personalized message on the back of that. Now, I would also recommend using connections off creatively. So you can basically filter for leads that are connected to customer success reps and your competitors as well. I've done this before a couple of times. To be totally honest, like it works for 1 in 1,000 people that you message, but when you do message someone, you will likely stumble across people that are the current users of their product already. So you can message them about your competitors' weaknesses. So for example, before I used to message a bunch of people when I was working in the market research industry, just telling them about the poor quality of like the panels, which is like what our competitors did. And I would just tell them like, surely that causes you sleepless nights, like going through the panel results because they're crap. And everyone knows that they're crap. So how about we finally just jump into the deep end and just show you how we can solve the problem for you. So this is another cool play. And then finally, safe search alerts. We talked about that already. And then don't use emails that much. Like even the best people on LinkedIn do not rely on emails. So once again, definitely not worth trying out, in my opinion. And in a nutshell, this is the end-to-end summary of how you would use LinkedIn Sales Navigator. You will receive an entire guide that walks you through every individual thing that we talked about. And on top of that, it links this video and it gives you step-by-step instructions on how you can finally use LinkedIn Sales Navigator. All you need to do is head down below the video and click on the top link right below the video, and that will take you directly to this guide, which walks you through everything that I know about LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Now, at this moment in time, you may ask, Tim, why do you bother recording a 40-minute video about how to use LinkedIn Sales Navigator? And I'm glad that you asked. And in super simple terms, the main reason is because by the end of you figuring out how to use LinkedIn Sales Navigator, you would have all the data on the companies and on the people that you want to contact. But here is the thing. The chances are you cannot send a relevant and personalized message to each individual one of those prospects that you just sourced from LinkedIn Sales Navigator. And that's why I have a course which is called Unlock Clay that teaches you how to use clay.com. So how to use Clay, which is a specific software, in order to personalize and make every single outreach message as relevant and personalized as possible. Now, if you want to take me up on the promise of teaching you how to become great at Clay in under 3 hours, by all means, all you need to do is click the link down below underneath the video. And all it is a £100 course. It only costs £100. It will take you 3, maybe 4 hours to do in total. And if you don't absolutely love it, I will refund you within the first 30 days of you purchasing the course. So if you want to take me up on that specific offer, feel free to do that. But other than that, I will make sure to leave a link underneath this video for you to check out the guides that I've created on LinkedIn Sales Navigator. And more than that, if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to the channel, please like the video, drop a comment if you have any questions or any suggestions for future videos. And straight after this video, I will also redirect you to a video that shows you how to use HeyReach to automate your LinkedIn messaging. Other than that, I'll see you in the next video. Over now.